If by that time we have put into place all of the countermeasures that you need to address this, we should do reasonably well. If we don't do that successfully, we could be in for a bad fall and a bad winter.
Dr. Fauci warning that coronavirus could still be a huge issue just when colleges start to try to reopen for the next semester. But the head of Purdue University, Mitch Daniels, he doesn't sound as concerned when it comes to students in his school.
Over 80% of its residents on a daily basis are under the age of 35, and therefore the data is very, very clear at essentially no lethal risk from this disease.
I should tell you, though, not all the Purdue student body is confident as Mr. Daniels.
We would love to have a senior year, but we do worry about what health risks that would pose not only to older people in the community, but to other students like us as well.
While I'm not personally at risk, it did seem that they were discounting the potential issues that students who are at risk or who may live with immunocompromised family members.
Now, Purdue, obviously one of many schools here that's struggling with what to do, but there are some that are planning to reopen, like the Indiana College with in-person classes this fall, Baylor University in Texas, Boston University, Brown in Rhode Island. They're all planning to open to students and faculty, but they all caution that they're working with health experts to make sure they, in fact, will be able to carry through with that plan. Harvard, they will also open for the fall semester, but the university, they still haven't decided how much of the learning will actually be in person instead of online. Harvard is not strapped for cash, as we know, as it has more than $40 billion in endowment, but scores of other schools, particularly private colleges and universities, could be facing a fight for their very existence. In fact, it is estimated that schools could lose up to 20% of their students this fall. Of course, that would mean a huge financial hit. And right now, scores of schools from coast to coast simply trying to figure out what to do. Let's bring in our guest. Bard College President Leon Botstein joins us right now. President, I appreciate the time as always. Before we get into the how and the why, do you have a sense right now? Do you have an instinct of what is happening at Bard for fall? And more than that, are you more concerned with the unknown? Like Dr. Fauci said, we could have the second spike of this pandemic right around the fall-winter season? Or are you planning on what we know just now and move accordingly off of that?
Well, I think we have to deal both with the known and the unknown. So what we do know is that this disease won't go away until either the 80% of the population has been exposed or there is a vaccine, which is neither of those things seems imminent. So we're going to have to live with this threat. And in that sense, there is some historical precedent. This is not the first epidemic that universities have had to live through in colleges. And we, in our time, have to calculate the balance between risk and safety. That's a very hard calculation to make, and it's a very difficult one. So I think anybody who looks into the fall has to count that the future is uncertain.
When would you have to decide, President? How late do you have to figure out if in fall the kids are going to be able to move into the dorms, go to classes in person? How late can you make that choice?
Well, we're making the decision that we're going to open on time. Like Harvard, since we know that we're subject to public regulation, the rules by which we open will be in the hands of the government, not our rules. We have the great advantage of being small. We're in a rural area. We have about 1,900 undergraduates in a very spread out campus. We have few institutions with elevators, and those that do have elevators don't have to be used. So the flexibility we have to adapt to the needs of individual students. We have to have spaces for quarantine. We have to have good connections with our local healthcare provider. So we have to be able to respond quickly and responsibly to people's needs. If students, for example, come on campus and they are more at risk, they can take their classes online. We've learned from this semester how to use this technology. So we actually have to look at the curriculum and the way we deliver our curriculum, and we may have to modulate between online and offline. But we're planning that by the end of August, that it'll be possible to bring students back to campus, albeit with some restrictions that range from, mask wearing and some preventative measures, such as reducing the density of dining and different testing protocols so that people know their relative immunity. And for employees, some flexibility for people who want to wait before they actually, are comfortable in coming into the class, even though everybody may have a mask.
There are, as you heard from that Purdue student, there's kids with obviously immunocompromised concerns. You also, I'm sure, have elderly faculty as well that are more at risk for this. How do you navigate that like it was last year, where they are going to obviously have face-to-face conversations? We still don't know so much about this virus as to how long it can survive airborne surfaces, etc. How, if it's September, President, can you have comfort if your professor says to you, hey, Leon, I'm not so sure I feel comfortable or safe getting in front of these kids. How do I know who's got it and who doesn't? How do you respond to that?
We respond to that by saying that, first of all, there are many precautionary alternatives. A teacher can decide to teach with a group, and the teacher is at a remote location teaching online. The teacher can decide to, instead of having a class of 12 people, to hold 2 sessions where there are 6 students each, separated by the appropriate distance. The teacher can wear a mask. And the teacher can elect also, we have to be flexible to say they're, as you say, the older faculty, some of them, or those with pre-existing conditions, they can decide to wait a little longer. We need to be flexible in our relationship to both students and employees, and so that people feel comfortable.
So talk about the economic realities that this has caused. I mentioned before off the top that, Harvard might have a $40 billion endowment, but no other college has that. And a lot of colleges we saw were having in real financial straits before even the pandemic broke. As much as 20% of students may not return to college this fall. Others are reconsidering where to go because of newfound economic realities in their households. Talk again about what is the math that colleges are looking at right now, and how many could actually shutter their doors because of this pandemic?
The question of the economic future of institutions is a very good question. You say 20% may not go. That's a prediction. There's so much unemployment in the country. The country is now in the midst of an unprecedented economic collapse, that with high unemployment historically, more people have gone to college, not fewer. There are no jobs. Where is a young person who has no skills and no education going to go? The question is not whether people want to go to college, it's whether they can physically, as you discussed, or whether we can afford to educate them. And that is scholarship aid. There's no doubt that institutions will have to put more into financial aid. 70% of our students now get financial aid, but how much they get and what percentage of students qualify will go up. So institutions are going to have to lean more heavily on philanthropy, on their endowments, and on support. And those that don't have it will be in trouble.
I think we all agree we want to return to normalcy, and I hope for all these kids it is sooner than later, and I wish you the best of luck. It will certainly be an interesting next few months for you. Thank you, President. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
All right, coming up next, you just heard the head of Bard College saying that he's getting ready to reopen, or certainly hopes to as early as this fall. The question is, how does the general public feel about going back to school or to work or to the movies? Well, we've got some poll numbers that may surprise you.